So first things first, congratulations on your thesis showcase, idolizing. So first, can you tell us the creative process behind the creation of the website? When did you start interviewing the kaigai idols that are based here in the Philippines? And how did you immerse yourself within the local idol scene in order to create the website?
Okay, so number one, I guess the conceptualization of the website started last semester. Because for us in our program, our thesis is 2 semesters. So we have the first semester, which is planning and then proposal. Second semester is execution. So the conceptualization started as early as then, when I was thinking of like, what do I want my final production to be for this degree program, right? Because like, this is the final thing I'm going to be making. It should be something that like represents me. So yung prof ko naman, si Sir Roman, yeah, he suggested that I do web dev. And I was like, oh well, web dev makes a lot of sense kasi it's something that you can do on your own time, something you can do individually. It's something that's very flexible. And also something that's very permanent. So yun din po yung actually one of my motivations for doing a website, was that I noticed kasi that there really isn't a lot of documentation on like the local idol community. So what I was thinking was like, oh, let's make something that can act as a reference for people who want to learn more about the community. So, for example, in the website, it like defines what a kaigai idol is. It has a list of a bunch of groups to get started, which are the groups I interviewed. And then, ano siya, it's supposed to be half story, half educational. So the story part is supposed to give you like the POV of what it feels like to want to become a kaigai idol, right? Because for a lot of people, I feel like maybe they don't have like the right background to appreciate like why people are doing things like this. So that's what the story aspect is for. Plus yung educational naman is a mix of all the findings that I had for my paper, plus some extra things from like my RRL, talking about like the history of kaigai idols, history of cosplay, yung mga ganun. Like related industries.
Yes.
Tas ano po yung second question ulit?
Okay.
So website, when did I start?
When did you start interviewing
Ayun.
the kaigai idols, including news skills na nandito din?
Ayun po. So, actually, my data gathering period was supposed to be this whole semester. But because I kept being so anxious, I only really started no April. So, pagkatapos ng, ano nga yun? Basta yung All Saints Day, All Souls Day. Undas. Pagkatapos ng Undas, I started emailing a bunch of idols being like, hi po, my name is so-and-so, I'm from like this and that, I'd like to interview you for my thesis. And then I gave them like a range of like, oh, I want to talk about history. I want to talk about your personal history. Like, why did you start? Why do you keep doing it? What's the industry like if there's an industry, quote unquote? What's the community like if there's a community? So, ayun naman po siya. Thus, for the third question, which is how I immersed myself.
Yes, yes.
Actually, for a while, I sort of didn't go to events because I was kind of caught up in other things. But I think the first time that I really like pushed myself and like really got into the community was Oshikatsu Fest, which was
that's nice.
yeah. Kasi when I was interviewing, and I believe, oh, I don't think I can say that. When I was interviewing one of my participants, they mentioned that like, oh, there are a bunch of events coming up this weekend. You could try going to one of them. So sabi ko, I guess so. At the time, kasi I was afraid that I wouldn't have enough time. That if I went to an event that like I would take up a whole afternoon, that's an afternoon I could use writing my paper. But then I was like, well, it's still for thesis, so I went anyway. And then I chose to go to Oshikatsu Fest because that's the one that seemed the most aligned with what I was studying. Kasi yung set, like, set list, all the people there are fully local idols only. So it really worked. That's my fairy tales naman. So dun sa dulo.
Yes,
yeah, fairy tales is so good. But it was really the first time I had like really seen what it was like firsthand. I had been to conventions before. I had seen people singing before, seen people dancing, cosplaying, and I've seen it online also. But that was the first time that I was like really in person. And suddenly I was like, oh, I get it. Like I understand. I understand why people do it. I understand why people watch. I understand why people dedicate so much time and energy into supporting these local idols. That was really the first time that I was like, wow. If I'm, when you suddenly realize something, you're like, wow, the world is so vast.
So, Vale, during that progress, as your website progresses, parang you've already found na support or parang interest, you've really found interest sa kaigai idols, especially here in the Philippines.
Actually, my first interest in them started before even the website, back before we were even doing proposals for thesis, when I first watched Aspire live. Yeah,
Okay.
kasi there's an org here in UP called UP Tomokai. They're like a UP Japan Philippines Friendship Club. So
Oh,
then they do a
yes.
lot of like mixed culture events.
Mhm.
So during one of their anniversaries, they invited kaigai idols, which I didn't know was a thing at the time. I was just like, who are these people doing Japanese songs? Are they like Japanese people, but they're Filipino? And you're like, wow, so like you can just do that. I don't know why in my head, like I had the thought of like, oh, that's not possible, or like that's weird, that's cringe. But then when you see it in person, you're like, actually, no, this is really cool. And the people that do it are very skilled and they're very serious about what they're doing. So it's not cringe anymore because they're taking themselves so seriously. So I am, yeah, that was really what started it, I think.
All right. So this is my last question for now.
Mm.
How this website, in your opinion, would help those who are not familiar to the Japanese pop idol culture, including those yung especially now nakita nila yung
I will fix that.
yes, yung nakita nila yung news kids
Mm.
perform kanina. So how this website would help them to familiarize yung not just the Japanese pop idol culture but also there's this existing na local J idol scene here in the Philippines.
I think the thing that my website hopefully does. Hi, Paul. The thing that my website hopefully does is that it sort of breaks down the biases that people might have about local idols, right? Because when you think about them, you think of them as like, oh, fans that are like trying too hard, or like, oh, they're kind of cringe because they're like, oh, they're going around in costumes and then they're singing. Why are they singing? But actually, like when you look at them as people, as individuals, they're just the same as anyone else. They're people who have dreams, who were inspired by things that they had seen growing up. They're people who were like inspired by shows like anime. They were inspired by manga. They were inspired by other artists. So in that way, they're not that different from any other person that decides to pursue music. So I guess that's really the main thing for my website is I want to show people that like they are just like you and me. They just do things in a different way. But that doesn't mean that they deserve judgment or that they're not as valid as other performers or as other types of idols. I think especially now in in a post Hallyu wave world, a lot of people think of like, oh, the pinnacle of idoldom or idolhood is like the K-pop model of being an idol, which has translated now to the P-pop model of being an idol. But I don't think that that's the only way that you can be an idol. There are so many ways to do it, and there are so many ways to be. So, and that's what I want my website to show, that like anything really is possible if you just kind of remove your biases and stop judging people.
All right.